So, you know what I found really interesting as I was preparing for this presentation? I think everybody in this room can prepare a presentation like this, or most of the presentations you'll see, in that the internet is a wonderful tool. There's so much there for us in terms of being able to research the topic. What I've been asked to do today is talk about the application of long-term player development and how a system like Hockey Canada or any major federation really thinks about weaving long-term player development into the fabric of your programming. That's the real challenge in what we do. And the real challenge beyond that is how to provide parents with information, how to provide coaches with information, and how to provide clubs, program administrators with information so that it makes sense in the player development model. So I came up with the title, When a Sprint Becomes a Marathon. So we've gone from a sprint track to a long-term track. And the idea is that we have to constantly promote, champion the concept of long-term player development. And you know, when I'm preparing for something like this, I'll go all over the internet. I'll look at the American development model and the new materials that the staff from USA Hockey are producing and putting up. Don't think for a second that anybody is innovating something brand new. And I'll talk about that in a second as I go through my presentation. But I think Tom mentioned this today about the book Legacy over on the right-hand corner. What Tom didn't tell you, the little story that goes with our staff, is we have about 125 people that work in our 4 offices across Canada. And Tom and Scott Smith, they purchased 125 copies of that book. They gave every staff member a copy of this book because there's so much wonderful information in Legacy. But I love this quote, the difference between where you are today and where you'll be 5 years from now are the books you read and the people you meet. There's no question that when you come into a room to talk with a group of people, you're sharing a lot of ideas with one another, and you walk away that much more enriched from the information that you got from other people, but that you shared with them. That quote comes right out of Lou Holt's book, A Championship Season. And that was one of those books early on. I believe I read that book at least 20 years ago. And there's a lot of really good content in there. But boy, I'll tell you, jump into Legacy and every page will have a mark on it. Every page. Great book. But if you think it's easy, you don't understand the problem. I sometimes use a couple of clips out of the movie Moneyball because it was a really interesting time where the Oakland A's were going through the process of using analytics to start to identify players that they would draft. And it was such an innovative change in the early 2000s that all the scouts around the table couldn't adjust. They just didn't have a sense of what it was that Billy Beane was trying to do. I'm not going to use the clips today, but I just want you to know sometimes you really have to look at what the challenge is. What's the real problem with applying long-term player development principles within your structure, within your club structure, within your team structure? And you really have to understand the problems before you can address them. And I'm going to talk about them today. But if you think if you think you know what you're doing, like think about it. The same old results result in the same old thinking. And that cycle is keep doing what you've always done. You'll always get what you always got. And I think that's one of the challenges we have as coaches. How do we get better? I mean, one of the ways you get better as a speaker, as a coach, is you come in and you watch other people speak. And you go, holy cow, I like the way that slide's laid out. Oh, I like the way that person moves around. By the way, I thought it'd be really hard for the camera person to follow Steve Norris around this room. I'm not sure what that video is going to look like. I like to wander too, but I know there's a camera, so I'll try to stay still. But you watch people and you learn from the way people apply their trade. And you do that in coaching. There's no difference in this situation. Okay, I'm going to talk about 3 core themes. I used ERS as the acronym. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about education and messaging. I'm going to talk about resource support. And I'm going to talk about sport partnerships. When I talk to people about young girls and boys playing hockey, I often talk about the value of sport partnerships. And I'm going to show you by the time we get to the end of this what it results in. Because I really think that our number one goal in society today is to get kids involved in sport. Not just hockey, but sport. And the reality is that if we can get kids engaged in multiple sports and they choose hockey as their sport of choice as they get older, what have we got? We've got really good young people. We've got really good athletes. We'll probably get pretty good hockey players. So Sport Canada, they're really the ones that fund everything we do in long-term player development. As a matter of fact, when we fill out our reports to the governing body for sport in Canada, we have to tie everything into our long-term player development plan. We have to show the resources we're building, the programs we're running, everything we do, we have to show how it ties into our long-term player development plan. And we have a 65-page book that tells you what our plan, long-term player development plan is, but we've always got to bring the government back to a system, like basically the health and well-being of a nation and the medals won at major games are simple byproducts of an effective sports system. So your number one goal is to produce an effective sports system. From there, your top players will percolate. And I like the point that Don made about, sometimes your job is to create a good practice plan for terrific players to step on the ice and engage and get out of their way. Don't be involved in compromising anything they're trying to do, because some of those players, they're exceptional. And we need to make sure that the sports system allows them to percolate to the top, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we've got a system that meets the needs of all players in it. So Hockey Canada's policy is built on 4 pillars, and I just put this together because I think it's fun to build these kind of slides. But enhanced participation. We want as many kids in sport in Canada as possible. We want excellence. We want kids to really enjoy an outstanding experience. We want it to be excellent. Enhanced capacity. That means a sports system that can meet the needs of everybody that comes to the table. Not, whoa, sorry, we're full. There are no full signs in sport. But there are some parents that think there should be. All of a sudden, a minor hockey association starts to shrink in number. You know what some parents are thinking? Hoo-hoo, more ice time. Let's take their ice time away. Not, let's bring more kids in. So I'll talk a little bit about numbers in a while. And lastly, enhanced interaction. What does that mean, enhanced interaction? How well do sports talk to one another? I also do a lot of work with the Coaching Association of Canada, and that's across all sports. So the Coaching Association is called a multisport organization because it's the interaction of all sports, and that's important. So why is LTPD important? Well, because to some degree the country really wants to see good results at the international level. If you have declining international performances, you need to address that. Next generation international competitors. What are we doing to meet the needs of tomorrow's athletes? Declining rates of participation, which has serious health impacts. It has serious societal impacts. We need kids involved in sport. Now, a lot of times we'll say sport's a great place to develop the character of youngsters for the next generation. Well, it can be. It can be a bad place too, if you're not purposeful in the types of programming you run. If you just leave it up to 15 kids in a dressing room with no supervision, take a look at your leadership group. If they're pretty good, then you can be comfortable. If they're not very good, not sure I trust the other 12 or 13 kids in the room to come away with a great experience. And lastly, we know in our systems that physical education is being marginalized. And what that means is that we're seeing a lot of school systems that are really focusing on the arts and science and getting away from physical activity as a cost-saving measure. What the government would say on the health side is, that may be a cost-saving measure today, but that's going to be really expensive tomorrow. So Hockey Canada has developed a one-pager. I'm not expecting you to read this, but certainly you can go online and you can look at it. But basically what it does is it takes you from, this is 0 to 4, all the way up to a category we call Excel, which is our national team level. And we really wanted to create a sport-specific graphic that outlined an 8-stage model from first entry into sport. And you can see that while this is the Hockey Canada document, that's a little swimmer, that's a soccer player, and that's a track youngster. Multisport. We know that kids need to be engaged in sport. Physical literacy and fundamental movement skills come from being engaged in many physical activities early in life. Over on the right, it's an 8-stage model. We have 5 environmental settings. That just means if you work your way around the outside of the graph, really what we're trying to do is introduce fundamentals at this stage, and then once we hit this black background area, we want people engaged in sport for life. And then what our job is to create the resources and information to support each of those stages. That becomes the real challenge in sport today. What is the relevance to the practice plan, to the seasonal plan, or to the development plan? What is the relevance to the age group you're working with? The importance of it, different points in an athlete's development pathway. You need to understand, as Steve pointed out today, like you go through the science side of it, you always need Steve in a room first to set the stage with coaches, parents, administrators, because he will give you the scientific evidence that backs up why it's important to look at the needs of a player, the needs of a young athlete, in the way that we look at it with a long-term player development plan. Fundamental movement skills and physical literacy, these are key. And Steve actually talked about the fact that, people see us as having a shortage of ice time, when in reality, kids need to be physically active. You can take them into a gym, you can take them out to a field, you can take them to a lot of places to do work that will benefit them when they are on the ice. So all the things you can do off the ice are just as beneficial. And I'll just let you read through those points, but essentially where we want to get to is we want to promote lifelong physical activity. Again, we've got a system that allows for the exceptional athletes to experience success in the sport and then percolate to the top. We don't want to get in their way, but we don't want to design everything to meet their needs at the expense of all participants in the game. So we talk about some resources. I think it's really important for coaches to be aware. There are many, many books on the subject. These are some that just in the past 10 years have been really good reads. Outliers, The Talent Code, Talent is Overrated. Just recently, The Sports Gene. There's many, many good resources out there, and coaches need to be familiar with this material so that as you talk to people, as you champion the cause for long-term player development, you have some good information to support it. Great anecdotes in all 3 of these books. Now, developing coaches. Not that my job here is to talk about how we develop coaches, but the reality is if we're going to talk about long-term player development, who's responsible for it? Coaches. So, coach starts with practical experience. Most people in this room should be able to identify that your practical experience came from what? Any idea? When you first get to coaching, is that it? First day? Never done this before? Brand new game? Or have you played the game? You've played the game. You've been close to the game. Maybe. There are a lot of people in Canada that are pretty good at telling you they're great coaches because their practical experience is sitting in front of a TV watching 10 hours of hockey a week. But we want people that have been on the ice. It's really nice if that coach steps on the ice with a little bit of credibility, like, how come he's got boots on? He can't skate. Oh, so he's never really played. So then the job is tough. But it starts with practical experience. And in order for that coach to go through what I say is a good pathway, education. We have the National Coaching Certification Program in Canada. Many of the federations around the world have their own coaching education programs, and certainly if they don't, the International Ice Hockey Federation has built coaching education programs that support. But there's also, in many parts of the world, many sport universities provide great educations, great degree programs that allow for that base of knowledge to be put in place. From there, we go to mentoring and the networking that occurs. That's where the real good stuff happens. You get to be in situations where you're not always close to the smartest person in the room. I say that because I don't think it's healthy to be the smartest person in the room. If you're in that room, move. Get to another room where there are smarter people that will force you to continue to grow. So mentoring is important. And then lastly, we've got to get coaches out and engaged in professional development. So once, it's a real frustration to see coaches who are really engaged in the early part of education and say, whew, got that done, have my certificate now, don't ever have to do that again. Don't ever have to pick up a book. Don't ever have to go to a conference. Don't ever have to be involved in continuing education. If that's the case, then you're going to stand still in your development. In order for your development to continue to move up that red line, you need activities like professional development. Coaches must engage in a lifelong learning process, plan for professional development, seek opportunities to develop coaching skills, like really challenge yourself. I remember talking to young coaches in Calgary where I live, and they said, well, what can I do to further develop as a coach? Well, go to the program of excellence. Go to programs being run by your federation or your branch so that you have the opportunity to learn from others in the sport that are coaching in similar situations. Go to international coaching conferences, any opportunity that you have, but certainly opportunities to develop your coaching skills. Don is in a great spot with the National Development Team program. What a great place that would be for any coach, even to go in and say, you know what, I'll pay my own expenses. I'll pay for my own accommodation. I just want to be on the ice in that environment, learning from those coaches. Promote coach education and training and support others in their quest to improve. That second last bullet, promote coach education and training, like be a champion. Be good about telling others how important it was for you to be involved in coach education, how important it was for you to go to a conference or a seminar where you got to meet people. And really, all the things that go on from the stage out, that's only about 60% of what's going on here. The breaks are built in to make sure people have the opportunity to network, to talk to one another, to really start to collect business cards and phone numbers and emails, because that's oftentimes your comfort level. I'll tell people, hey, you can email me anytime, but they're maybe not that comfortable. They go, he's pretty busy. I'll go to somebody else. That's fine. But if you have the opportunity to start collecting a network of people, do that. So presentation focal points. Why do we take the approach that we take? Well, here's what the core messages for today, for me. Dangers of early sport specialization. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about multisport participation, and then I'm going to talk about age-specific programming. That should be able to narrow our focus down into why youth hockey needs to start to build, or if they have, continue to reinforce these elements within their sport. So in Canada, we produced a program called the Messengers Program. What's that? We actually train people to go out and do this. We give them a PowerPoint package. We give them a resource guide. It's got this little back page. I covered it up, but this little back page has thumbnails of all the slides. So if you're in the Messenger program and you're able to go out and talk to a group of people, you want to talk to a group of parents, we'll give you the message. We'll give you the material. As a matter of fact, we have a national seminar. We bring them in and we train them on it. And we create a system of training trainers, so these individuals become the master messengers and they train others to support that message. Presentation guide's really important, building the messaging material for them, and then provide the supporting resources. But from there, as people get a little more experienced as messengers, we ask them to start building some of their own content into it. Dangers of early sport specialization. This is one of those messages you need to share with parents. As Steve said, they need information. Without information, parents have a big gap. And who fills that gap with information? So I'm the guy at the rink, and I want my 5-year-old playing 12 months of the year. What do I need in order for my 5-year-old, think about this for a second, what do I need in order for my 5-year-old to play hockey 12 months of the year? It's a tough question. I need 17 other kids. It's a team sport, right? I want my child to do this. So, hey, Bob, Steve's a pretty good little player out there. You want to come and join my spring team? Hey, Jerry, your little guy's a pretty good player out there. You want him to come and play on my team? Well, I'm going to start to convince a few people that playing 12 months of the year is good for them, that it's going to get them somewhere. As a matter of fact, they're all going to make the top team next year if we push them through this program. Well, there's a void of information. Parents don't know that overuse injuries occur from being in a situation where you play one sport too much. Overuse injuries. What else happens? Kids burn out. I like this slide because I think we can tell that the crutches tell us something, the fire tells us something, kids will burn out, and decreased overall athletic development. The reality is kids with a broader athletic base, they're the ones that are actually successful in that sport later on in life. And I've got some examples for you. And then I finish it off with multi-sport participation can lead to better performances, less burnout, less social isolation, and a lifelong enjoyment of the sport. Because I think, like I raised a couple of athletes. I raised a little guy that played hockey, and now at 28 or 29 years of age, he's playing golf, he's playing on a fastball team, he's playing on an ultimate frisbee team. And you know what that whole purpose of that is? Continued social engagement. He's with his buddies. They're not out trying to win trophies. They're not out trying to win tournaments. They might be sort of challenged to win, but at the same time, it's that they're engaged in lifelong sport. And not necessarily, and these guys all play hockey together as well in a men's team, but they're good athletes involved in sport. I talked about messaging. So we talk about how important it is to get the right kind of messaging out. I want to share with you an example of how we do that. We have an area on our website called Hockey Canada Community. And through community, we talk about champions in the communities, like exceptional Canadians. But we also have our president talk to our membership once a month.
Hi, I'm Tom Rennie from Hockey Canada, and thank you for listening to Tom's Talks this season. I'll start up again in the fall. So, it's decision time. The hockey season has come and gone, and now you have some decisions to make. The weather's warmer, there's lots to do outside. What is it that you'll do? I would really like to stress the fact that multi-sport participation is critical to the development of a child. It really and truly is. It's not about hockey for 12 months of the year, we know that. What I'd like to suggest is that you do something different, something that maybe helps expand your mind, helps you use your physical assets in a completely different way, maybe gets you outside your comfort zone a little bit, keeps you playing, keeps you active, keeps you with your friends for sure, but by all means, not hockey. We love the game of hockey, every single one of us. We identify with it every single day, probably 12 months of the year. But at the end of the day, we need to do other things. It's about building a complete person. It's about building, the next citizenship that's diverse, that can do any number of things. It's not just married to hockey. The sport is terrific for all of us. We know that. It grows coaches, it grows officials, it helps parents help develop their children, and by all means, it helps players develop into bigger and better things. But so too do other sports, other activities. I've had the good fortune of coaching in the National Hockey League, so I'm quite familiar with what those athletes look like. And I'm very familiar with what it took for them to get to that level, quite honestly. And it wasn't just about hockey. To a man, the great players that I've had the opportunity to be around, to watch, and in many cases coach, have all participated in other sports. When you look at the very best in the game, having done other things, activities, sporting events, whatever the case may be, through those summer months, I think it's really helped them grow and develop into the great players they are. And for those of you that have those aspirations, there's only one way to really enjoy the game, and that's by playing others. For those of you, the huge majority of you, that just want to play, it makes a lot of sense to me to play other sports. And a message to you parents, Please understand the value of multi-sport participation. Understand the value of hockey and the ability to play it at the proper time of the year. I know parents have a passion for the game. They have a motivation for the game for sure, and there's no question of that. The motivation at the end of the day should be, do my children love going to the rink? And do they love participating in other sports? If you have that connection to activity, then at the end of the day, you've got a great citizen on your hands. And at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for. And finally, on behalf of all of us here at Hockey Canada, from all the branches across the country, from all the minor hockey associations, all the volunteers, have a wonderful summer. And thank you very much for listening to Tom's Talks.
What a great message to share with your membership, to tell them to just shut it down, move on to some other activities. And that's why we talk about the messaging. It's really critical. And this messaging around the fact that multi-sport participation is important. It's interesting because a couple of years ago, one of the sports in Canada ran an ad campaign to try and increase their participation. You know what they did? They slammed other sports. It was like they were in competition. And the reality is sport needs to come together and have that aligned approach to getting kids into sport. Now, I just got on the plane yesterday, and when I got an email from one of the people I work with out of Toronto. This is Kevin Pillar over on the right. He's a baseball player for the Toronto Blue Jays. They actually call him Superman. I'm going to show you why. The opportunity doesn't present itself a ton when you're playing baseball. I think that's something you learn playing football, playing basketball, playing other sports. I pride myself on being an athlete first that chose to play baseball. So he makes this phenomenal catch, one of 200, and this is what he says to the reporter when they said, "How did you learn to play like that?" And he talks about being athletic. So there's two ways to develop that skill. Chase down a fly ball like that 100 times a day for about 100 days, or maybe just be involved in other sports, develop athleticism, develop all those attributes that go into a catch like that. Okay, next I'm going to jump into the age appropriateness of hockey. And it's interesting, a number of years ago, Hockey Canada introduced the initiation program. When I say a number of years ago, I'm going to say 35 years ago. I was at one of those first seminars as a course conductor 35 years ago. And at that time, we recommended that kids at that age level, from 5 to 8 years of age, play cross-ice hockey, play small area hockey. 35 years ago, we recommended it. It took us 25 to 30 years to say, you know what, we're not recommending it anymore. It's now a rule. It's now mandatory. That's the only way you're allowed to play. So then what folks do is they look for communities that are breaking the rule. Hey, you guys playing full ice? Yeah. Oh, okay, we're going to come over and play against you. But actually, nobody's allowed to do it anymore. So everybody in the communities across Canada are playing cross-ice hockey. Our friends at USA Hockey built a great video. Actually, there's a couple. One, they show adults playing hockey on a soccer field, essentially, with soccer-sized nets, and they ask adults, what do you think? And that's the comparison between kids playing in a large rink versus adults playing in the relatively same larger size rink, and adults don't like it. It's too big. The goaltenders definitely didn't like it. They weren't able to stop pucks. The second video that they produced, they worked with an NHL club and obviously the Detroit Red Wings, and they did the analytics around what kinds of things happen in a hockey game, and I'll share those with you in a minute. But here's what we actually have to do with our membership. Like we say, go cross ice. Well, what does that look like? What do you mean, what does that look like? Put a barrier across the blue line and then go from board to board. Ooh, can you draw that out for us? Really? Like when I was 6 years old, 55 years ago, they rolled a fire hose across the blue line and we played cross-ice hockey 55 years ago. I thought it was the real thing. Well, mind you, that was 55 years ago. You know we weren't wearing equipment then. Helmets, gloves, maybe a jock. But we actually have to explain it to people. We have to say, this is cross ice hockey, this is half ice hockey. And if I just throw a diagram out, people say, well, can you put the players on there so we know how many? Oh, really? Okay, this is 3-on-3 cross ice with kids waiting, and this is 4-on-4 cross ice with kids waiting. Oh, good. Now we can show the parents what we're doing. Bring them in a room and draw it out on a board. But we sometimes have to be that specific about information. What are the benefits? Again, our friends down south did a pretty good job of this. Puck touches, 2 times the number of puck touches, 2 times the number of pass attempts, 3 times the number of shots on goal, 6 times the number of shot attempts. And I use little guys here to show the difference between passing and receiving versus the shooting. And there's a real subtlety here. Anybody know why those pucks are blue? Any idea? They're light. They're 4 ounces versus a 6-ounce puck. So we even said, hey, using blue pucks. We're using blue pucks with these youngsters. Why? Well, I remember watching my little guy play full ice hockey when he was 6. And I don't remember him seeing handle a puck very much. As a matter of fact, when one young guy's parents decided that they needed a cake that day because he had just scored his 150th goal, I went, who's counting? Anyways, my son came to me and said, hey, Dad, Jackson had 150 goals. How many do I have? I said, well, aren't you counting? And he goes, I just can't remember. And I said, it's 2. Anyways, age-appropriate programming means that skills, drills, and gameplay best meets the needs of players. Through a series of research products, the analytics provide very strong support for cross-ice play. Our programming is aligned this way. Discovery hockey, 0 to 4. I think 4 is a little early, but we do have 4-year-olds playing the game. Some people want to get a head start. And it's funny, I talked to a woman a couple of years ago who had called about her son, wanted to know if we could talk to the Minor Hockey Association to let her son go up to the next age group because he was too good for everybody in his age group. I said, oh, how did that happen? Like, what are you doing with him? She said, well, he started when he was 3. Why did you start at 3? Weren't there other things he could have been doing at 3? Oh, he loves to play hockey. Well, the problem is, now at 5, you want to move him up. At 7, you'll want to move him up. At 9, you'll want to move it up. Eventually, according to Steve's graphs, all the other kids will catch up, and they'll pass him. And he might burn out. He might have overuse injuries. There will be some challenges with youngsters in that situation. We want to make sure that people understand what's happening at each age, and these are the terminologies that we've used. You'll get that presentation. What are the implications in minor hockey? Well, we even define what we think a season should be for the initiation age group, that 5 and 6-year-old group, 20 to 25 weeks, 1 to 2 times a week, cross ice, half ice. We do the same thing with novice, which is under 9. Cross ice, half ice, and people say, well, how do you teach them about offside? We're more interested in how well they handle the puck, pass, receive, skate with the puck, shots on goal. That's what we're interested in. We think we can teach them offside in about 15 minutes when they first get to Atom hockey. Old beliefs will not lead to new ideas. So we came out with something that we think is a real good messaging tool. It's called the Hockey Canada Network. And we're in the day and age of smartphones and tablets. And so what we did was we created an app. And what the app allows you to do is some pretty cool things. We've got tons of content on the app. The reason I use this in my LTAD presentation is because I think there's a way to communicate all this information. Like we have a series on there. We have a 10-part series with Steve Norris talking about all the stages of LTPD. So when you talk about how you provide parents with information, if you want to hold a seminar like this for all your parents, about 80% of them will show up. What about the other 20%? How do we get the information to them? Well, we force them to be at the meeting, for one. We say, you don't come to the meeting, you don't get a jersey. You don't have a jersey, you're not on a team. So you tend to get better turnouts. But here's another way to move the information. In this app, you can actually create teams or networks where you can push information out. So the coach can create a practice and push it to their assistants. They can push the information to their players, they can push the information to their parents. But we can also have the club administrators push to coaches. We can also have club leadership push to administrators to push to coaches. So if I want you to see an article and a video on Steve Norris, I can send that to you if you're on my team, if you've accepted to be on my team. That video I showed you of Tom Rennie, it's on the app. If I want people to see that, I can push it out. And the idea behind a web like this is that I can send it to 8 people who in turn would send it to 15 parents each. And across those 8 people, I get that message out pretty quick.
The network is the most innovative sport resource platform for today's coaches, players, and their families. The network is a rich and dynamic resource that will allow coaches to design practices, share practices, and learn so much more about the game. Included in the network is a section called Learning. Whether the goal is to develop individual skills, improve conditioning, run efficient practices, or build on team tactics, the Hockey Canada Network offers an in-depth library of the necessary resources to allow coaches to enhance their game.
So that was Corey in the video, and he was on the ice. He's got a 50-inch TV behind the glass, right? Behind the glass. We had to point that out to somebody. Hey, whoa, 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 don't bring a TV out on the ice. So it's behind the glass, and with Bluetooth, he's operating it off his phone. What do you think the rate of retention is when players come in, kneel down, watch the drill live, and then go to the station and execute? What do you think the rate of retention is? Oh, it's an easy number. It's 100%. You actually go to the station and you watch this and you think, that's amazing. You don't have to correct. Well, you have to correct technique, but you don't have to correct the execution of the drill because they saw it live. Okay? Player characteristics are always changing. Successful coaches recognize this and adapt by being lifelong learners who understand that change is taking place. We thought 10 years ago, wouldn't it be cool if instead of a coachmate board, you had animation on the ice? How about instead of animation, you had the live drill? So putting 600 drills into that app and being able to identify that drill with that video and show it, like you build your practice plan, 6 videos, stand back and away you go. Now the only downside of this app is that a lot of parents think as a coach you're out on the ice texting. You might be. Sometimes it's important. Sometimes your wife is sending you a list of the 6 things you're going to need to bring home after the practice. But most of the time, it's because you're working on the practice plan. Lastly, I'm going to talk about partnerships. They're essential, and we all benefit from one another's success. This is a young hockey player, and we've identified baseball, tennis, and soccer as good sports to develop young athletes. Look at this.
Oh, I see a lot of new faces here. Who wants to go first?
Hi, I'm Jill. I'm a recovering soccer mom.
Hi, Jill.
Ever since Bailey was 5, I've been driving her to early morning practices, after school games, weekend tournaments, summer camps, indoor winter league, Spratum league.
Spratum?
Spring/autumn. I lived in my van, never saw my husband, but it was okay because my sacrifice was making Bailey a better player.
But we encourage our kids to play sports so they become better people.
Tell that to the little brats, huh? Who play other sports during the rest of the year and then steal all the spots on the soccer team?
Perhaps those kids are better athletes because they play other sports?
That makes no sense. Bailey is out there every day, kicking the ball until her feet are numb.
You say that like it's a good thing.
And then one day, out of nowhere, Bailey tells me that she doesn't want to play soccer anymore. She can't even look at a soccer ball after all the years I put in.
How old is Bailey now?
Going on 7, why?
When a child plays only one sport, sometimes they have a higher risk of suffering repetitive injuries. They can burn out, and they get turned off sports altogether.
I found myself at 5 o'clock in the morning the other day, sitting in the van, and I realized I'm not a soccer mom anymore.
Encourage Bailey to try different sports.
So I shouldn't have sold the van.
Or would anyone else like to share?
I want to take you right to the hockey example. If you've seen this before, it's
Ex-Brent Gretzky.
pretty good.
Hasn't been on skates in 15 years.
Early sports specialization can actually hurt a child's overall athletic development. And by encouraging their son to only play hockey, they may have actually hurt his chances for succeeding. But what is Daniel doing now?
David doesn't like to speak about it.
It might help to share.
My son is an astronaut. I still have all his hockey gear.
He still keeps his skates sharpened.
He's still draft eligible.
He's 34 years old.
Gordie Howe played until he's 50.
You need to get over it.
I know!
Admitting it is the first step. How about you? Would you like to share?
So a couple of things. No, 3 things. I like 3s. Number 1, I got 5 minutes? I got to get some more slides. I'm almost done. Number 1, I said sport partnerships. We did that in partnership with Soccer Nova Scotia and Sport Nova Scotia. Number 2, messaging. The messaging is embedded in there. Now, it's humorous. There's no question. People see that and they get sort of that fun side of it. But the messaging is really good about early sport specialization, about multi-sport participation. And number 3, it fills the gap. I talked earlier about the information gap that parents have. Parents need that information. They need to make good decisions that are child-focused, athlete-focused. And how do they do that? Not by getting information on the side of the rink from a parent that is overzealous and needs more kids to participate so that that parent can see a program run for 12 months of the year. So I think that's critical. Those are the areas that I think are really important. So how do we measure success in our youth programming? Well, number 1, we're aware, and everybody knows that the reason we build programming in the way that we do is because it's player-centered. And that's why it's important to give that information to parents. This isn't about educating them. It's just about filling the void. There are a lot of very bright parents out there that work very hard to make good decisions for their youngster. But you very seldom see, I used to ask this question all the time, so I'll ask it again today. Do you know why they don't have plexiglass at the back of a classroom? Because parents don't go to school to watch a class. You know, they don't have a parent at the back going, no, you know that answer. You can do that. Damn it, I told him that one last night. Oh, but we see that at the rink all the time. Number 2, meeting the increased demand for quality programs. Like, there's got to be very good programming in place for youngsters. Number 3, coordination of hockey with other sports. We'll measure our success based on the relationship we have with other sports. A, to bring kids to sport. B, to know that their sport participation in other sports will make them better players. The other part of that is, you know, baseball, they want all the kids to play baseball 12 months of the year. Tennis wants them 12 months of the year. Soccer wants them 12 months of the year. Well, if everybody wants kids 12 months of the year, we're not sharing any of the best athletes. And all of those sports struggle with losing kids later in life. Losing kids to inactivity, losing kids to different activities. I watched my son grow up with a skateboard. And the things he did on a skateboard, Steve talked today about that young guy kicking a soccer ball in a playground. I never signed him up for skateboard instructions. So the things that he could do, where did he learn them? At the skateboard park. With other people. Certain age where you have to pull them away from the skateboard park, there's stuff going on there you don't need them to be a part of. But the fact that he had the athletic ability, him on a skateboard and him on a BMX bike, he never had any instruction in those areas. That leads me to believe that lots of young athletes will develop skills in areas without that kind of intervention. We need to make adjustments to seasonal structure. I talk about the length of the season, and we need to promote multi-sport experiences. All of this leads us back to the fact that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Steve's given us all the data. Don's talked about looking at players in one window of time and seeing what they look like in another window of time based on sound development programs that meet their needs at the level they're at. We got to look at that system from start to finish and say, what are the needs each step of the way? Thanks very much.